I wanted to start with you first. This film keeps audiences guessing until the very end. While you think you know the direction in which it's heading, it's that final reveal that's so shocking and devastating. Without giving any spoilers, what was your initial reaction when you read that for the first time? And what was it about this character and story that resonated with you and made you also want to produce it?
Well, we had a cabin that his dad owned, hour and 15 minutes from where we live and it was just the desire to, get a movie made because I have other bigger projects that, need over $10 million and stuff. And it was about really finding a script that we can shoot, that didn't take that amount of money. And so that inspired the search, and I started to talk to writer friends and said, hey, do you have a script that takes place in one or two locations and blah blah blah.
Mm.
And I reached out to my friend Elisa Manzini, who she had cast me in her pilot called Hollywood Angels as a regular. And so I knew her, and she said, I have a script. And so I read it, and it was a horror. And I was like, I like the characters, I like the story. And so I talked to Doug about it, and I said, but we're more like thriller driven. We wanted more of a thriller. So we optioned it, and then we said, hey, Lisa, do you mind if we turn it into more of a thriller? But we love the story and the characters, and that's what we did. And so that's kind of what inspired me to say, let's do this, and then he
Mm.
wanted to make movies as a director as well. Like, I always loved his little movies he showed me the ones he made as a kid
Mm.
and as a young adult. And I was fascinated. They were so hilarious and entertaining, and most of them were horror. So I said to him, I think this is the time for you to direct, because he always wanted to do it.
It's quite a debut. Perfect segue to this next question. But Douglas, one of the most fascinating things about horror is that you can convey so many universal themes in such an understated way. And you're no stranger to this genre. What is it about horror that excites you as a creative and a storyteller?
Sometimes with a career, you kind of, you can't really pick where you're going to get cast. So, a lot of the stuff I've been cast in, a lot has been horror, but it's not necessarily the genre that I am the most passionate about. And like she said with this film, it was kind of like I enjoy the working in this space. I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite genre. But with this, it was kind of one of those things where it was like we had the cabin and we had the script, so we ran with it.
It's so gripping to watch on screen. And Isabel, your character is dealing with so much grief in her life after losing her stillborn twins. And you brought so much depth and nuance to that journey. As an actor, how did you create the space for yourself to tackle that vulnerable place that we find your character in?
Oh, thank you so much. I think that being a mom, I have three kids, and having so much love, the deepest love that
Mm.
ever can exist, the love for your children. Oh, just talking about it makes me, it just, I love my kids so much that like it just gives you the space to like feel the loss instantly. Because
Mm.
when you think about like, gosh, if I was to lose one, I can't even go there, so just uh I didn't even have to honestly go there, because if I did, I'd be crying like this too much, in all the scenes. But I think just being I feel like I'm a super loving person. Being, a kid of a Mexican family that teaches you that, oh, you got me. Just talking about my family, how much love they've given me. It's like that gives you the space to just love and to feel the
Mm.
loss in such a great way, because when you're taught to love so much and so deeply, and you've been given that love by your parents, it's like you have the space. I'm so grateful, that my parents, I feel like, and my family are like the inspiration. It's like you have everything you need to be acting, like I just feel like they are the ones that gave me the vulnerability, the emotions.
Mm.
My parents are such open hearts, and my family. And what more do you need, right, to be an actor, is just to open your heart and be vulnerable. in different roles. And so I hope that I conveyed that. I hope, that, people can feel the story with my work. And, it's emotional because also being a mom, I took so much time, to just be full time for the kids and give them my love that, I hadn't really been full time in my career until now. And so this piece really means so much to me because it's like I'm finally being there full time, to do my work. And so I hope that you guys will enjoy many more, movies with me to come.
You brought that love to your performance in this. And Douglas, this is your directorial debut. Congratulations, by the way. As the director, how do you create the space and the trust on set where your actors do feel comfortable to go into these vulnerable places? And is there a different shorthand that's developed because you have experience in front of the camera as well?
I think that that's the biggest thing that, as a new director, even though I've been in the business 30 years, a lot of the technical stuff I may not have known with cameras and lenses and things like that. But the one thing I did know was acting. And I know that there's directors I've worked with that, are actors, directors, and they give you that space to do the thing. And I think that was the thing that I was able to offer is, everybody has a different process, but with the acting, I knew how to speak to the actors, being an actor, to get the performances I wanted. And it wasn't like I had to do a lot because everybody that was in the cast was amazing. Just a little note here and there just to get them maybe to do something a little different was all they needed. But I think that I learned so much from doing it, but the acting side was the one thing that I felt like the most confident in to be able to direct for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful that I don't know if you had read on the press kit, but we're friends with like Dan Thiel and Whitney Anderson and Chris Browning and Daniel Robe, everybody we knew except Rebecca De Mornay. And we saw their work, like Dan and Whitney, we met them in acting class 15, 16 years ago. So we knew what they could do, and so we are so happy that they ended up in the role because, we had offered the roles to, especially Whitney's role, the role of Chloe, to A-list and stuff like that. But sometimes you can't wait for the A-list to give an answer when you're already set for production and their manager or their agents are taking too long to say yes or no. So you have to just go with the best person you can that close, that is going to deliver, but yet have an amazing experience with you,
Yeah.
Such an ensemble piece. And Isabel, similar to Douglas, you're also a multifaceted talent. How have your experiences behind the camera impacted the way that you approach your work on screen and interpret characters in script like Angel Baby?
Everything just kind of started even when I was a little girl. I knew inside my heart, I literally saw it, that I was going to be an actress, a writer, a director, and producer. And I love that there's so much of that now because my parents being immigrants, they gave me that freedom of like, you're here and you could do whatever you want in life, and God's the only one that can stop you. And I had that drive since I was a little girl that, growing up, and I tell this story to my kids, is that there was a lot, I'm sure you remember, in the last 20 years, a lot of people would be critical of people that could do more than one thing, or there wasn't a lot of actors that were writing, directing, producing, especially women. Clint Eastwood was one of them, and I was always in awe of him. I was like, I want to be like Clint Eastwood, that could do more than one thing and be a master at it. And I started to see, right, the last 10, 15 years, it started to open up, and more people like Ben Affleck and, Salma Hayek, or, different people started to write and produce their own films. And I started to research people that are so successful in the industry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Holly Berry produced, the Dorothy Dandridge story that broke her into stardom. And so you start seeing that so many were doing it so long ago. And that is like so rewarding, that you have the confidence, but also want to give the confidence to the young people, right? Boys and little girls that are poor, that, you know, all they have is their dreams, is that you can do whatever you want and be great at more than one thing. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't be multi-talented and be amazing in more than one thing. So, you know, that's the message that I hope with my example, that, you know, you could be great at more than one thing. Yeah, and it feels so great, you know what I mean? Like, to just be able to do more than one thing. Like with this movie, I love that I produced it as well, because I could hire who deserves to be hired. I could give people opportunities that I know need to be in the light. Like, you know, I've seen his work, and, you know, when you see the actor struggle, you know, whether, you know, it's 10 years, 20 years, 30, you know, to be able to give a voice to talented people, like, it's so rewarding, you know, to see my friend Dan Thiel, Whitney Anderson, and Chris Browning and all that, to be in this film and have such beautiful work be out there, like, that makes your whole decade, you know what I mean? And I can't
Yeah.
wait to make more.
Beautifully said. And there's something really special about creatives who have all aspects of that, the different facets of this career. And Douglas, with this being your directorial debut, did anything surprise you about this overall experience? What was the biggest takeaway for you?
Oh, there's so many of them. It's such a great learning experience, even though it was so difficult in certain areas. You learn so much from production to, you know, post-production. You know, you obviously make mistakes, but those mistakes make you better. And I'm ready to do another one now. For a while there, I wasn't, because it was just so hard to finish it. But I guess through the challenges, it becomes better, and you learn more through it. So I'm just excited for the next one because of the learning lesson.
Mm,
I know that I've taken away so much stuff that I would have never seen, because as an actor, you don't go into the sound editing, and you don't
yeah.
see how important that is, especially in a film like this, where every little creak, every little sound effect is added in post, which makes that the film feel full. Those are things that I've taken away from this, and feel like I'm more confident going into something in the future.
Yeah, you definitely need to direct again. And perfect segue to this next question. It's a question for both of you. It's often said that in filmmaking, you make three films. You have what's written, what's shot, and then what's edited. It's in that final stage where, you know, the story really starts to take shape, and you both had a hand in that process. What discoveries were made during the edit that were less relevant, maybe when you were reading the script or when you were shooting?
Gosh, it's so true.
I
When the movie
mean,
changes,
yeah, it
it
really
takes
takes
form.
its final form, yeah, in editing. And I think it's tedious, because there are so many months or days, but it is very rewarding, because it takes a life of its own. Like,
Mhm.
it starts shaping, and you're like, oh wow, we got to give in. Like, sometimes it takes you in this direction that sometimes it's even better than what you thought. And then sometimes, you know, it is complicated, and you have to say, oh, we didn't get that shot, so we can't do it this way. So you have to edit it the other way. So it's really rewarding in the editing. But I think that, um, to be honest, I really feel it turned out better than we even thought.
Yeah, I think that to answer your question, and that the things that were written originally through editing, we with the ending, we ended up adding that wasn't even in the script, and that
Mm,
form from actually production, editing, and then watching it so many times, saying, okay, we need something
Yeah, and for
to add
example,
to this.
I wrote that role for Rebecca De Mornay. I wrote it after the rough cut.
That
So,
wasn't in
like,
the
mm,
script.
always knew I wanted to put an A-list, and we had the role of Frank, you know, that in another role that, you know, we were like, this has got to be a name and blah blah blah. But once you have that rough cut, like really rough, and you go, we got to go do pickups. But, you know, I gotta have my A-list here, or, you know, my very big name that can carry the distribution deal or get it sold. And so that was really awesome because first we had I don't know if we can say, but who, maybe we shouldn't, but we'll keep it as a mystery, but it was a male role first, because we had this famous friend of ours that we're like, okay, he's got a huge movie coming out, and you know, this will help us and this and that, but he was not available. And so, but he wanted to do it. And it was like, oh my gosh. But then things are meant to be, you know, the way that they're supposed to end up, because when I said, okay, it's going to be a female role because I need more women in here, you know, and when I said to him, I'm going to make a list of the top female thriller actresses of all time, as soon as I saw Rebecca, it was like, that was my number one. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to get her. I said to him, I remember walking in when I was a little girl into the living room where my older brothers were seeing The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and all like I was a little girl, so I came in and saw one of her scenes, and I was blown away. I thought, that lady has it, and I want to be like that. You know, she is intense and amazing. And so, you know, when I started to go after her, you start seeing how things were already connected. I believe in how the universe is, you know, really sends you messages, because listen to this. When we cast her, I called my brothers and sisters and text them in a group, because I have 4 siblings. And I said, guys, Rebecca De Mornay is going to be in our movie. She accepted. And my brother, who's hilarious, Albert, he says in the text, shut the F up. And I'm like, why are you saying that? He says, she's been my client for like 5 years. And I said, what? I said, how come you didn't tell me? So he owns a landscape company and she's one of the clients. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you should have told me. And I'm like, you should have told me. I'm like, you know, I could have gone through you or whatever. But it was just funny because you feel that at the end, you see how, you know, things are supposed to be pieced together. That was just a great anecdote, because when she was over our house, she called him and played a prank on him and was like, Albert, your men didn't come to trim my roses today or whatever, you know, and she was like getting mad at him, you know, just as a joke and stuff. Anyway, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.